And so without further ado, I would like to welcome our first speakers of the day. Switch your cameras on. Who will be talking about money, finance, and how to gain financial security in an uncertain, very turbulent world. So I shall let you all introduce yourself and take it from here. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Leah. I really appreciate it. And thank you very much for everyone at Pineapple Support for putting this on and inviting us all to speak and host these panels. This has been amazing. So I'd like to introduce all the panelists. Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Mollura. I am one of the moderator for this panel. And I'd like to introduce our panelists, Jonathon Corona, Chris Visser, Melrose Michaels. And without further ado, let's just get started. So, with a very, very specific question, and please, any participants, if you have any questions, feel free to ask that in the chat if you have access. Without further ado, money, huh? Who wants to jump in?
I can jump in. I think that this topic is so interesting to incorporate into a mental health panel, just because of the way that money and financials kind of wage and impact our mental health so severely. So I think it's kind of fascinating that this topic is brought on this panel or on this summit because of its impact and how much it actually affects most of us, sex workers or not. So it's an interesting way to approach mental health because I don't hear it talked about often like this. So this is really exciting.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's almost like money is really important to functioning in the world and how you can handle some of the stressors and yeah, mentally as well.
Absolutely.
I'll step in, Jonathan from Mobius Pay. Just a quick introduction. I don't know how many people are familiar with me. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Mobius Pay with 19 years in processing and adult. And money certainly is a huge component to this thing called making a living. You know, there are a lot of wonderful, beautifully talented performers and artists, but without that income, it's not a business. And, you know, by staying compliant, knowing what's allowed, what's not allowed, from content all the way to chargeback ratios and how to manage all of that, it can seem very overwhelming, which is another added stressor. You know, we don't want our clients, our performers to think, if I do this, am I going to get shut off the next day? So we take huge steps to inform and educate our clients and make sure they are operating within the Visa MasterCard regulations and the bank regulations. Each bank has its own personality. Corey and Larry made a really good point yesterday when they were speaking to the MasterCard updates. It comes down to a variability or variation by processor, which can be really overwhelming, especially for clients that have multiple relationships with multiple processors. Each one has their own personality, and each one is making their own requirements. There's no blanket solution. There's no fix-all, you know, kind of one thing will work at every bank. So it's my job to make sure I understand all of it so I can go ahead and ensure our clients understand all of it so they can keep processing and keep earning on a day-to-day basis.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Yes. And so sorry about that. Let's actually just do the quick introductions. Great. Thank you very much for starting us off, John. Melrose, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, sure. I totally slipped my mind entirely. I'm Melrose Michaels. I'm a veteran decade industry performer. I've been around 10 years now. I've kind of gotten into the industry via the webcam scenario and kind of expanded from there, getting into clips and then premium social media, which is where I found most of my success. And since then, I've launched other businesses. I run Networthy, which is a for sex worker, by sex worker clothing line that actually donates proceeds to Pineapple Support for mental health resources within the industry. And then he also launched sexworkceo.com, which is an educational resource on how to run your adult industry business like a business, and kind of fill some of the skill gaps, so you can bleed mainstream should you choose to, and if you decide to later on. So yeah, that's who I am.
Thank you, and both of you very welcome. Looks like we lost Chris. Looks like there was some technical difficulties. If Chris can hear me, can you say something? Might be gone. Hopefully we can get him back very soon. We'll do another introduction with him as soon as he can come back. And as well, okay, looks like he's dealing with a little bit of an emotion, a little bit of a personal thing. He'll be back on very quickly. So once again, I'm Steve. I'm a mental health counselor, owner of Prosperity Counseling and Coaching, and I am a Pineapple Support Counselor. I am also a certified financial coach who works with a lot of fear and self-sabotage around finances. So, and as well, Mel and Jonathan, if you could please post any of your websites, Instagram, social, anything you would like to the participants to join or follow after this is over.
Sure.
So, working in the field, what have you seen that has been both maybe helpful or harmful, or maybe some of the mistakes or some of the strategies for managing finances, managing budgets in the industry?
I can start if you'd like. I think one of the things that was really evident to myself and a lot of fellow performers that might be watching this was how truly vulnerable we are when we rely on one platform too much. So these are things that became very evident with the OnlyFans ban earlier this year. And when a company has the influence over your business to put out a tweet and retract it 1 week later, and you lose, if anyone listening is like myself, I lost half of my income overnight. And I manage a team of employees to help me run my other businesses. So losing my main bread and butter is hugely impactful. And although I have these businesses and I really saw myself as pretty well diversified, all of my businesses are still in the sex work or adult vertical, whether it's the clothing line, the educational stuff, or my actual content creation. So while I thought I was diverse, and I think while most performers think that they're diverse because they're on multiple platforms or they do multiple types of content or multiple streams of revenue, I think pointing out what it truly means to be diverse is when one impact can't, or one revenue stream can't impact another. And I think that gets overlooked a lot in the industry, and it's something that should be probably more discussed, because when you lose your income overnight, you really see how vulnerable you are.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Corey and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the other person's name for the legal aspect yesterday, was talking a lot about the MasterCard thing, where it's technically not shutting anything down, but there's now things in place. It's slowed it down enough that it might actually be the same thing, where technically it's not OnlyFans or one of these other platforms shutting it down and cutting things off completely, but it's enough of a gap or enough of a stop that it can definitely impact your business. So being aware of diversification in regards to where it's posted and content and streams of income, but also saying maybe just watching out, because the idea is like, here's something coming from a credit card company that could shut you down. Absolutely.
I'd like to touch on diversification, not just from verticals, but from banking relationships. We always advise our clients to have a backup, and there are many, many reasons. One of them, from a technical point of view, is downtime. Very rarely, everyone touts 99.9% uptime, but there's always that 0.1%. And if you've got one bank and one gateway, and one of those two entities fall into that 0.1%, you are left without the ability to accept credit cards until they fix it, until they get the hamster back on the wheel. And I think the last 2 years, there have been 3 or 4 outages, either nationally or globally. And people that didn't have a backup for a processor and a gateway were just they were stuck until things came back online. So having more than one bank and having more than one gateway to ensure that uptime is important as well. And that's something that we also advise on and can speak to with a great deal of certainty and understanding.
Absolutely. 2 is 1, 1 is none. That means if you have 2 things, if one of them fails, you at least have one. If you only have one thing, you're gonna be screwed, because it always seems to cause problems right when you need it. So if, for example, as a telehealth counselor, I have to use Wi-Fi, I have a hotspot, and I have my cell phone. Each one, if the power goes out, things happen. So for taking payments, both in regards to your online processes, maybe diversify different banking systems, different credit card systems to make sure that stream, at least one stream, is always going. One question we have: what alternatives would you recommend? Is there any services specifically you'd recommend, John?
Yeah, I mean, we work with every adult bank in North America, and we have adult banks in Europe as well for our European partners. And we are gateway agnostic. We will connect to any PCI certified gateway. So to really ultimately up to the client's preference and what they need for their business. One of the things I'm very proud of is listening to our clients and tailoring a solution that fits their business and their needs specifically. I really disdain the cookie cutter approach, saying this is what you get and you will make it work.
Yes. So allowing it to be, what do you need? Let's figure this out together. I love that.
Yes.
Good. Oh, great. And we have, yes, that check out the website and the Insta, your socials for Mobius Pay. Awesome. Mel, do you have any suggestions in regards to what service processors, anything to suggest on that?
Well, honestly, for the majority of creators, we're on platforms, so we don't have any say in a lot of those things. We don't have a lot of say in a lot of these things. What I would suggest is making sure that while you're active on all these platforms, you are launching an independent website. I think that's usually important. There's a lot of big players in our space that offer solutions for independent creators to get off the ground with independent sites without it being hugely expensive. One that I'm working with personally is Elevated X, when they're phenomenal. So having something to stand alone to funnel these fans to, where you get to own your data and understand the processing and make decisions about the payment processing as things evolve and change in policy. I think that's important. And also, what Jonathon mentioned on downtime, this is a little bit off base, but when things do go down in our industry, I think it's nice to point out from a strategic, position, when things like Facebook go down for 6 hours out of the day, or like just last week, OnlyFans was down for a big chunk of time. These are opportunities to capitalize elsewhere. So, if like a platform like OnlyFans is down, people are going to be looking to Twitter for answers, or they're going to be going to Pornhub, or they're going to be elsewhere. So timing, or having like a stash of content that you can profit off of by being timely with it when things are down on other platforms and posting it elsewhere. There are a lot of opportunities that aren't or don't appear to be opportunities in our industry. So just making sure you're prepared for those. It can earn you some money and some peace of mind if you're on top of it.
Fantastic. Okay, so can we discuss saving and where to put your money for the future? Absolutely. Is there anywhere specific that you would recommend for investing, maybe retirement, anything like that?
Well, I'm certainly not cut out to give investing advice or any kind of qualifications. But what I will say is definitely save. You should be putting money away for taxes. If you're listening and you're not doing that, that's a problem. And then also just being very aware of the situation, because when you look at performers, especially, you're almost viewed as like an athlete. You have a finite, time in the industry, and you have to be prepared for when you decide to exit. And have a plan in place for that. I would also highly recommend, maybe not in terms of investing, but investing in yourself and launching other businesses while you have a lucrative base that can help kind of keep you risk averse. So I think that's important, just making sure that your money is working for you in one way or another, and that you have stuff set aside for when the tax bill comes due.
Yes, definitely. Watch out for taxes. That is a thing. Any advice, John?
Well, you know, that's a little bit out of our purview, but definitely investing in your business, investing in diversification is always a good idea. You know, we support all business models, all legal business models, and you know, if you can sell it, we can process for it.
Fantastic. Good. So good support. One of the addendums to that last question about where to put money for the future is about saving versus spending, living for today versus looking after your future. I want to make it a little bit more general of a question. What should someone who's new to the industry, either as a performer, run the camera, back-end producer, business owner, know about money and finances that they might not know from, I don't know, business school or from wherever they've been researching beforehand? What should they know before getting into the industry?
That's a tough one, because I mean, I didn't know anything at all. I didn't even know that I was supposed to be saving for taxes, because I was actually getting mailed checks. So that was my huge learning curve, and back taxes I had to pay off because of that. So I'm definitely not qualified to advise it, because I've made all of these mistakes. I guess what I would say financially, something to know before getting into the industry, is that your income is unpredictable, even when it feels like it is predictable. OnlyFans, this new model of subscription paywalls, has given us this false sense of security that it can't be, you know, if it does slow down, it'll be gradual for some reason, or that it's sustainable because it's a reoccurring revenue. But in reality, that's just not true. I mean, like I said, with one tweet by OnlyFans, I lost half my income, and it didn't just come back when they reversed their decision. It was something I had to go promote and run traffic and grow again. So the illusion that we have some kind of security, the illusion that anyone has financial security is not real, but us especially. And when you're basing, you know, the decisions for your future off of, well, I average about, you know, 20K a month or 10K a month or 5K a month, whatever your income typically is, you have to understand that that might not be the case. So making sure you're prepared for those fluctuations, because you are your own business owner, I think that's hugely significant. I always base my next check off of what my most recent check is. I don't have this idea of a set income that I'm going to make every month, because that's almost never the case. It fluctuates hugely. So being prepared for that and making decisions knowing that it could be different in a month or two.
Absolutely. Be aware of the unpredictability, the fluctuations. And Mel, as someone who has also had to pay back taxes, you actually are the experts, because not really a mistake. It's just like, this is something you only have to deal with that other people don't, who are W-2s. So yes, you do. You are totally qualified to give advice on that.
I'm qualified in the worst ways.
Yeah, learning's difficult. That entire school of hard knocks thing. You gotta get hit and go through it. And now you're the expert of it. Yeah. John, any advice for someone newcomer to the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I see a lot of careers start on the platforms, and I think a good next step when it's financially viable is to launch your own site and do your own hosting and do your own subscriptions, because it's very unpredictable, especially with Visa and MasterCard. You know, they make changes, and it takes our community a while to kind of decode what they're actually saying, what the requirements actually are. And there's a lot of knee-jerk reactions, because nobody wants to get disqualified from accepting Visa and MasterCard, because that's a huge segment of electronic commerce is credit cards. And of course, you know, there are performers and there are platforms that accept crypto, but that's a whole other ball of wax that I am not qualified to speak on. But absolutely start your own website, and you can drive your fans there, and you can do exclusive content there. You can do previews on the platforms, and then to devote your time and invest in that website, because that ultimately will be what will last.
Fantastic. So yes, I'm a huge fan of independence. If you can go your own way, absolutely go for it. Be your own platform. Be the person who gives the content directly. Absolutely. I also am not ready to talk about crypto, but I really want to all the time. But I'm not prepared and don't want to give too much false information about any of that stuff. And real quick, Jonathan, it seems like it's a little bit difficult to hear you. If you can either bring your mic closer or just speak a little bit louder,
Yeah,
please.
absolutely. Hopefully, maybe if I hold it.
There we go.
Okay, I'll hold it.
Fantastic. All right. And one of our participants, Shelby, says, save 20 to 30% of your weekly checks for taxes. Make sure you keep track of write-offs and open an IRA. Absolutely. Write off everything you can. If you are in one of those states with state and local income tax like mine, maybe save a little bit more than 30%. Or if you're international and depending on your country, depending on maybe you have a virtual address, or I don't know, maybe you're transient if you're on the road and live in that digital nomad life, that might be changing some of your taxes idea. But love the Roth IRA. It's a great investment vehicle for retirement. If you need more information on that, please look it up. And definitely write off whenever you can. Always write off. All right. Caitlin asks, if you're starting in the industry, what would you say are the first things we should be investing in financially? What should be prioritized after basic steps? Is there anything, once again, anything specific, like right out the gate, is there something that we should say, I'm going to set aside money for this thing?
There used to, when I first got into the industry 10 years ago, there's this huge, genuinely, you did have to invest in your setup. You needed an HD camera that shot 1080, you needed a microphone, you needed all these things. But now we can do so much from a cell phone and be so successful with just that you don't have this huge barrier to entry, because most of us already have a nice iPhone or a nice smartphone to do this from. So if you get past that initial investment of like a cell phone to do this, or like maybe a few apps to edit and produce and such, really the only thing investment wise I would suggest to focus on is what your next move is. Like, do you want to launch other businesses? Set aside money for that. Do you want, like, what, it depends on your independent goals. Like for me, the goal was, because I know that I have a finite time in this industry, was to launch other businesses. So I've done that. And then to like build the house in cash, like do everything that sets you up financially so you're free at the end of your career or at whatever your checkpoint or your goal is. So like, I really subscribe a lot to the Dave Ramsey way of finances, where, you have a little bit of a nest egg on the side, you pay off all your credit cards. I don't finance anything, everything I buy outright. Now I'm working on building the house in cash. My property is almost paid off. So like at the end of my career, I will have zero debt. Everything my forever home is paid for. I don't finance cars. So then I'm set, and anything I earn after that is for spending or traveling or keeping or raising the family or whatever it might be. So I think just being very clear on your goals and what you want as the bigger picture, and then setting yourself up for that. I'm big on like reverse engineering your goals. So like if you want your house paid off, then okay, what do you have to do to get to that step? What do you have to, start at the big goal and work backwards until you know what tiny steps you have to take each day to get yourself there. But that's such a hard question, because it's going to be so independent for every person or performer.
Love it. Know your goals first and pursue it. Set yourself up for freedom. I love how you put that.
Yeah, my end, not a whole lot. There's not a huge barrier to entry. For adult merchant accounts, there is a annual Visa MasterCard registration fee, $500 to each card brand, and that's typically due when the account is first established. And that's important for our clients to know, because they don't want to open a brand new merchant account and then have an ACH reject the first month for NSF or anything else. But aside from that, it's once a year and it's straight to Visa and MasterCard. Unfortunately, it's kind of a pay-to-play environment, but that's it.
Fantastic. And I would say if you don't quite know your goals yet, if you're getting into the industry or getting into anything new, and you're not quite sure how to leverage that into the next goal or know what the next goal is, I would say just work on yourself, invest in yourself, try to slowly understand yourself more, maybe with a counselor, maybe on your own, and look towards the future of what do I really want to get out of this industry, get out of my career, get into the next space.
I'd like to add to that too, Stephen, if I could, because I think something that gets overlooked, especially in relation to mental health, is making sure that your goals align, like your career goals or, you know, health goals, whatever the goal is, aligns with like your happiness goals. Because like I'm super guilty of that, where I want to like, you know, launch major businesses and rule the world and be super wildly successful. But then, you know, it'll be like 3 a.m. and I'm in bed. I'm like, am I actually enjoying this? Like, does this bring me happiness? So I think it's important to like sit back and audit like the bigger picture, and the bigger picture being, yeah, like you want to be financially free. Okay, but how does that equate to your happiness? And is it going to make you happy in going about it the way you're attempting to go about it? Because it's so easy to lose sight of that. And I'm always at war with that. Like, I want to do X, Y, Z, but will that really make me happy? Or am I just wanting to do it out of like ego or like achievement or other things? So audit yourself and make sure that those two things align.
Absolutely. Love that. Align yourself, audit yourself. And yes, as someone who's worked in plenty of situations and jobs where I have not been, and it's been hell, yeah, hell. And you're very at war with yourself, you're very at war with the world. And no, you have to align. Is this what I really want? And not just like, oh, am I having a bad day and I need to like do something completely different? Because you're gonna have bad days. But the idea is like, is this what I really want now and in the long term? Really ask yourself and pursue the career, the job, the entrepreneurship that aligns with your values and your own happiness. I love it. Now, working with clients in the field, do you ever see anything like either self-sabotage or real fear of money, fear of being able to manage finances, anything like that?
I would say something I noticed that stands out a lot is there's a lot of I don't know if it's FOMO or this desire to appear wildly, you know, successful before maybe people really are. I think that we end up spending money and doing things for like, you know, the gram or like the appearance of wealth or of success, or of security, when in reality it's actually setting you back. I was really guilty of that when I first got into the industry, because you kind of fall into like the glamour and the like pseudo celebrity of it all, which none of that's real. Like I go to the grocery store and shop at Walmart like everyone else. No one knows who the fuck I am. Like it's not real. So like I remember when I moved from Chicago to Tennessee with my husband, I had a conversation because we were really downsizing, you know, coming from like a nice subdivision into literally a double wide trailer so we could save to build our house. And I remember telling him, like, I have a Louis Vuitton purse that's like $3,000 and I don't have $3,000 to put in the purse. And that's humiliating. Like, why would I could sell that and we could put it in a water tank for our new home, but I have this purse sitting collecting dust in a town I can't even wear it in. Like, this is so stupid. So I think making sure that you kind of like stay grounded in that, because you're going to waste so much time, energy, and money looking like something you aspire to, while self-sabotaging you to actually become that person that can do things like that and have things like that and have it all be relative to its cost. So just live in the present and keep your mind focused on the long-term goal, because no one cares anyway. Like I hate to say that, but like it really doesn't matter.
Absolutely. And I've worked with plenty of clients who want to keep up the Joneses or want the gram. And in this particular industry, where a lot of it is, in a very literal sense, imagery, in the sense of like, okay, we are putting things on Instagram and Twitter and wherever else. We're trying to sell, we're trying to get people to go to our platforms or streams, buy our DVDs. That is perfectly fine. Do whatever you need to do for the imagery there. But maybe you don't need it with, you know, spending all the money that you have. Maybe the imagery, like taking a shots in the woods, is as fine as, you know, going to Grand Bohemian Hotel, whatever is going on there.
Absolutely.
So being aware of that. Also, I would almost say, you know, being in the industry, there's a lot of shares. So I've worked with a film crew recently, and they share equipment with other people. So if you are, as you were saying, starting out, hey, maybe I don't have the iPhone. Maybe you can borrow something as well. We don't need to invest all the money you have in either starting out or upgrading your business. Yeah, absolutely.
I think that if everyone focused on getting out of debt genuinely, because also I'm sure a lot of performers are in my age range. I'm 31 now. And we were all sold this lie about like, college and all these things. So we were handed debt at 18 between credit cards and a college education, most of us. And you're having to dig yourself out of this hole anyway. I think making sure you're really attentive about getting out of debt for first and foremost, because that's going to give you peace of mind. That's going to free up your energy and just like mental power to figure out what your next steps are or what you want long-term as a business or as opportunities. The weight of debt can be profound and it can wreak havoc on your mental health. So making sure, even if you're kind of like my first 8 years in the industry, I was entirely aimless. I was like camming for a paycheck, trying to build this house, doing whatever, but like I didn't have any like fulfilling career aspirations. Those are like the last 2 years, those are recent. So for those first 8 years, the best thing I did was just get myself out of debt and start working towards that. So even if you're not sure what the end game is for you, like focus on that because it's going to benefit you all around. And then the rest will come, and it'll likely come once you are out of debt because you have that energy freed up to consider other opportunities. You're not in survival mode anymore.
Absolutely. Yes. And yeah, the debt thing can definitely negatively impact your psyche. John, anything to add?
Really, the only thing I can add or think to add is a little tangential, and that is there are the ones who do start their own website and they acquire their own processing. There's a lot of uncertainty around the regulations, around the rules. And the visa manual alone is 800 pages. Nobody's going to read all that except me because it's my job. But my passion in the industry for the last 18 years is helping people, helping entrepreneurs establish their business, grow their business. It genuinely gives me joy to see our clients go from, a couple of clicks a day to thousands of clicks a day. And there is always this little bit of, I don't want to say it's shame, but maybe it's embarrassment about, what does this actually mean? What is Visa trying to tell us? And I have no problem explaining it to anyone and everyone all day long because it's kind of very ambiguous at best when they put out regulations and it's open to interpretation by the masses and everyone. You ask, what's the joke? You ask two attorneys the same question, you get 3 or 4 different opinions. So, with helping and answering questions from content regulations to chargeback regulations, because they're different by card brand and they have different programs and nobody's paying attention to their numbers, and then they get themselves in trouble, and that can lead to getting the account terminated, which is not a good thing either, because then that stops your flow of income, and then there are fines associated with that levied by Visa and MasterCard and by the acquiring bank and by the processor. So it's best to know the rules before you play the game, and that's where we can help best.
Absolutely. Yes, regulation, not only in the federal, local, and state, the government, but also just like the banks, your processes are. And yes, I am not reading that 800 pages of nonsense. So if you, getting into this field, hire Jonathon to help you understand how to actually do this and pursue the independence in the career and the getting rid of the debts. That is really important. Looks like we got another question. Melrose mentioned setting up your own website. How easy is this?
Yeah, so actually, this was not something I had intended to do. When I first got into the industry back in 2011, I think it would have been maybe 2013 or 14, after only 2 or 3 years in the industry, I did launch my own independent website. I didn't have to pay for it up front. It was kind of a rev share situation. So They would take a certain percentage of the revenue to host and maintain my website on my behalf, and I had full control over everything else. Although because of that relationship, they owned the data, which is something that's more important nowadays that we all are more aware of. So when I talk about setting up a website, it failed miserably back then because no one cared about creators the way that they do now, where they're looking and seeking for, you know, a certain performer's OnlyFans or a certain performer's fan site. It was a little bit before its time. So now is a timely time to start your own independent website. The factors you want to look out for are certainly making sure that you own your data. You should have all of your fans' emails. You should have full view over the transactions. You should know who your processor is in the relationships that they have with banks. And personally, like I said, I'm working with Elevated X, and they do like an 80-20, just like a OnlyFans rev share. So there is no upfront cost. It is very easy to start. Haven't launched it yet. It launches February 14th. But the things that you need to just look out for and know in advance is who's going to have your data, who your payment processor is, what their banking relationships, their history of that looks like. I know with Elevated, they've been in the industry, 20 plus years. They run some of the biggest sites by another name, EXL Complete, I believe. And so they work through SegPay, and I mean, they're really transparent with everything that they do, how they've done it, how they've been able to stay ahead of all, banking regulation and policy change. So I have a lot of faith that they know what they're doing because their track record shows that. So they have great relationships with banks. I'm not concerned about that. And they also don't allow me to do certain things on my website because they know legislation will go and change that very soon in the future. So like, whereas on OnlyFans, a fan can send me user submitted content of God knows what, no one's checking, on my independent website, that will not be the case because they can't do that and keep my site afloat once that policy change comes through, because it will. So making sure the person building your website, that they're aware of the policies, that they have great banking relationships and payment processor relationships, and that they're going to guide you on the things that you don't know, and you have a little bit of that education along the way. I think those are fundamental. And having the opportunity to do a rev share is really great for a performer, because then you're not putting, $5,000, $10,000 in to build a site from scratch. It will be probably a little bit more cookie cutter. There's things you can change, there's things you can't. You can always hire a coder once it's profitable later on. But just getting it established, and the sooner the better, so that you get that data and you have that fan record in case your social gets deleted or your OnlyFans goes down or they ban explicit content or whatever the case may be. Making sure that you start that sooner than later is hugely important, because we've all lost fans along the way. I've lost countless Instagrams and countless social platforms. And those are people that'll probably never find me again. So the sooner the better. I wish I'd stuck with my independent site from the beginning, and I have some regrets about that, but you live and you learn.
Fantastic. Own your contents, have a good relationships, or use a service that has good relationships with banks, credit cards, maybe be aware of the upcoming legislation, protect your own data, protect your own client list, work, everything. Love it. John, anything to add?
No, I think that about covers it. We're always available for consulting. We don't charge a consulting fee. I'm happy to speak with anyone who's looking to start their own merchant account, answer any questions they have. And even if they decide to go to a different processor, that's okay. And clients or merchants that have existing processing, I would love to take a look at processing statements and see if there's anything that could be done to help you keep more of your money by way of a lower processing fee. That's always a huge help. Sometimes people go with the first processor that signs them up, and they don't realize that it's 12 to 15%. None of that gets returned to you. So knowing how much you're paying for processing, I think, is important in the world of finances, and helping you keep more of that money so you can invest it in your business and invest it in yourself or put it away. Bottom line is it's yours.
Fantastic. Yes, be aware. So I know we're running out of time. Just a couple more questions. Any advice about company names for bank accounts?
You should definitely be incorporated. You should have an LLC at the minimum, something a little bit more robust as you grow your business. And then the biggest advice I wish someone had given me was make your company name random as fuck. Give it some initials, maybe some numbers. I'm just kidding about the numbers, but don't make it relative to you because this is all publicly available information. And if you're a performer, you should have privacy and safety concerns. So don't name your business, Melrose Michaels Inc., because that will be a huge mistake.
And keep it as vanilla as possible because commercial banks sometimes aren't always very friendly toward adult clients. So if it's just ABC Inc. and you're not selling ink, they don't need to know that.
Sounds good. Vanilla, random, make sure your information is private. Yes, so not the Steve Mollura pornography company.
Exactly.
All right. Any final thoughts, advice, comments, anything you got? And predictions for 2022, if you have any.
I don't have much final words of wisdom. If I think of anything useful in terms to make creators more money, they can find it on sexworkceo.com. But predictions for 2022, I predict user submitted content is going to take a major hit. And if you're not prepared for either that to change on the platform you're currently on, or you haven't launched an independent website, you might take an impact on that. So just to be prepared for that. And then personal goals, honestly, my only personal goals for 2022 are to kind of double down on the businesses I launched in 2021, make sure that I get them successful in whatever that word will mean to me and my happiness long-term. And I'm hoping most other people evaluate that the same way too.
Fantastic. John, anything to finish off with?
Yes, I am very much looking forward to traveling again. I will be in Los Angeles and Las Vegas next month. I would be more than happy to speak with anyone who's got any questions. My predictions and goals for 2022. There is a new-ish program called Rapid Dispute Resolution and Order Insight. We have a direct connection to Visa to offer these programs. We have our own API that we've written and built from the ground up to offer to our clients to help them. The whole purpose is to eliminate and prevent chargebacks before they happen, keeping everyone's money in their pockets, or at least keeping them out of trouble. So that is increasing. I know Visa has issued a mandate. I don't know if it's been pushed back, but I think Q4 2022, a majority of issuing banks need to be participating in this program. So it's not going away, mercifully. The clients that are using it today have seen a huge reduction in their chargebacks. So if chargebacks are a concern for anyone in the audience, or if you know anyone that has chargeback trouble, this is absolutely a program that would be a huge benefit to safeguard merchant accounts and safeguard the bottom line. So yeah, LA, Vegas, I'm speaking on panels at both shows. Come find me, or just DM one of our socials, Facebook, Twitter, Insta. It'll eventually get to my phone and we can meet up and talk.
Fantastic. Good stuff. And my predictions for 2022, we're all going to have great times, best love, sex, money ever, and it's going to be great. So thank you, Mel. Thank you, John. Leah and Stephanie, thank you very much for everything. Thanks for Pineapple Support for putting this on. Leah, back to you.
I love your predictions for 2022, Stephen. Fantastic. Huge thanks to Jonathon and Melrose and Chris, who did have to leave us. Great advice from two completely different angles within the adult industry, which I think is, it's wonderful for everyone who's watching to hear both sides and get that little bit of inside knowledge and advice from somebody, about two people who have been in the industry for a long time. And have experienced the ups and the downs and made the mistakes, and it's really great to pass that knowledge on. And I'd also like to point out that Melrose, Jonathan, and Chris, all three companies do donate to Pineapple Support, which makes them even more awesome. So huge thanks again, and thank you, Stephen, for moderating this panel. It's been absolutely fantastic.